Welcome back, everyone, to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. The stage is set for the American League Division Series. The Blue Jays will take on the New York Yankees, and the Detroit Tigers will play the Seattle Mariners. But we're here to talk about the Jays today, Jackson. Fans probably a little nervous right now as the series is about to get underway.
This is what it's all about, right? Sport, and especially like this season for the Blue Jays. You've been ever since July in that Canada Day series. You've been looking ahead to winning the division, which the Jays were able to hold on and do. And you see the benefits of that now. You get to sit back and watch the Yankees and Sox go at it. It was a great 3 games, and the Yankees now come to Toronto in what is going to be it's a historic series. First time these teams are ever playing against one another. And the stakes couldn't really be a whole lot higher. This is what it's all about. It doesn't really get a whole lot better than this.
It just kind of seemed like a collision course, didn't it? That it was just going to be the Yankees and Blue Jays all along. So we're going to dive into this series a little bit more so on the Blue Jays side and kind of what fans can look for and what they can kind of expect from this team in this, maybe 3-game series, maybe 5-game series. I guess we'll see. But I think we should start with the pitching staff because there's a lot of questions around exactly how they're going to line this up.
Yeah, that was again the nice thing about the Jays winning the division is they could have a chance to line up their rotation however they wanted. You get Chris Bassett back from the IL as well. So yeah, if you look at just game 1 to start, obviously the Yankees are on the back foot in game 1 because they won't have their ace Max Fried available. So they're going with, I read today, either Luis Gil or Will Warren. They're going to announce that at some point on Friday. So maybe by the time you're watching this, you already know. But either way, the Jays should have the advantage in game 1, strictly from a starting pitching standpoint.
Yeah, I think, I've heard so many combinations of what the Blue Jays should do, lining up their rotation. I'm fairly confident saying it's going to be Kevin Gausman in game 1. As you mentioned, that may be officially announced by the time people listen to this, but I really think they should not overthink this. I think there's kind of one question in my mind of what direction they go. And that's who do they want pitching in a potential game 5 on regular rest? It's probably going to be Gausman starting the game, but whoever starts on Sunday is going to be on regular rest for Friday, which is game 5. Now, do you want that to be Shane Bieber, Trey Savage? I think that's kind of the big question that people should ask. I think those 3 are going to line up in some form, 1 through 3, but that's kind of the question on my mind and kind of what I'm looking for.
So then in a game 4, in your mind, it would be Gausman then, if he were to start game 1?
That would be Wednesday. How many days is that?
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 3 days of rest.
It's going to have to be probably a Bassett and or a Lauer. I think you feel pretty good about that with this Yankees lineup, though, because of the left-handers. And they're probably going to take 3 left-handed bullpen arms. We can talk about the bullpen a little bit. But you're going to need probably 4 starters in this series, unless you really want to push Gausman. But you'd probably just save Gausman for a game 5 or whoever starts game 2. So, I don't think you want to overthink this too much and try to outsmart anyone. I think those are the 3 guys. In my opinion, you go Bieber game 2. I understand you Savage pitch on the road in Yankee Stadium, but you just watched Connolly early pitch at Yankee Stadium. You saw Cam Schlittler. Oh, I almost messed that up. Cam Schlittler, obviously, is at home, but pitching at Yankee Stadium. That's not read too much into pitching on the road as a rookie. Go with your best guys. There's an old saying, get beat with your best, and I think that's what you have to do here. And Shane Bieber, to me, Shane Bieber, this is why you went and got him. You went and got him to start 2 playoff games. And you can do that if you start him in game 2 and start him again or piggyback him in game 5. So for me, it's Gausman, Bieber, Savage. We'll see what they do. This front office likes to use its analytics and sometimes overanalyze, as we saw the last time this team was in the playoffs. But I really just hope that they don't overthink it and just get beat with your best. Roll your best out there and go from there.
We've seen that a lot in the postseason with them. In 2020 as well, remember when they had, I think it was Matt Shoemaker was pitching, and he was looking good, and then they brought in Robbie Ray. Pre-Cy Young Robbie Ray didn't go so well. Yeah, I think for me, Matt, I would actually go with you Savage in game 2. And the reason for that is because I do think the Yankee Stadium thing, I would prefer to have Shane Bieber start game 3, just because I think he's a little more battle-tested. I also think that game 3 and game 2 are both super important, but I don't want Chris Bassett pitching in a game 4 also kind of scares me as well. So that's where it gets a little dicey in terms of, like you said, if you need 4 starters, how are you going to make that work? I wonder how they use Trey Savage, big picture. Is he starters can get pulled pretty quick in the postseason. Maybe it's a thing where he is more of like a opener sort of thing, and you leave the guy who might eat the bulk of the innings as a bit of a mystery, right? So maybe a Savage could, in theory, open multiple games. Maybe a Savage could pitch in bulk in more than one game. I think that's where you could see them get a little creative. It might work, it might not. That's what I'm curious about, is how they use him, how they see him. Is he a pure starter who you're going to try to go like Cam Schlittler or Conley Early, as you said, or is it more of a kind of a bulk guy? That to me is a big question that will be answered in the next few days. Either way, Matt, the reality is like you're going to have to suppress home runs no matter where you are and no matter the situation. As Ross Atkins said the other day, prevent runs. Trey Savage will be part of us preventing runs. So I like you Savage in game 2.
Very Ross Atkins.
No kidding. I like you Savage in game 2, Bieber in game 3. And then from there, I mean, I guess it would have to be Chris Bassett in the game 4. That does scare me a little. I'll be honest with you, is not pitched well on the road this year. In game 4? See, Lauer's interesting as well, especially with all the lefties in their lineup. I suppose you could do a thing where it's like a Lauer / Bassett. You kind of have them both ready to go in case one falters, and then, maybe you also lean on your bullpen a little bit in that game as well. You're going to have to lean on your bullpen, right? So much of the postseason is now. It does get really, really interesting. I also am not worried too much about pure matchups against the Yankees because same thing. They could take a starter out quickly and go with the bullpen anyways. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how they view Trey Savage here.
Another reason why I might go to Savage in game 3 is because of his ability to kind of neutralize left-handed hitters at Yankee Stadium with that split finger. If you go you Savage, say Lauer, I mean, you kind of swing the advantage back in your direction. And I just really want Shane Bieber throwing twice in this series. I really do. Do you want Trey? We talk about, is Yankee Stadium going to be too much? First of all, I really like the makeup of Trey Savage. I don't think it's something that's going to overly bother him. Obviously a rookie, it's a tough environment regardless. But this is, do you want him pitching out of the bullpen in a potential game 5? Like, there's just as much pressure there. I mean, I think it kind of neutralizes itself out. And I really want Shane Bieber throwing twice on regular rest. Because if it were short rest and with Bieber coming back off Tommy John, then yeah, I would say probably you want Savage to pitch in that game. But if you can piggyback Gausman and Bieber and then get it to the back end of the bullpen, in a potential game 5, that's hard to argue with, right?
Yeah. That does sound really enticing, doesn't it? And you're right about Trey Savage in that seems like a pretty well put together dude who kind of doesn't really worry about that stuff. And we did see him in basically a playoff game last Saturday against the Rays. Pitch really well.
The Rogers Center is going to be rocking too. It's going to be obviously it's going to be on his side. There's going to be obviously a ton more Blue Jays fans than Yankees fans, but it's going to be an intimidating environment anyways for a rookie. So if you can roll 2 veterans in this series, in Gausman and Bieber, that's the way I would go. I feel like they're going to tinker with this a lot, and I think there's going to be some early hooks like there usually are. But Gausman and Bieber, they're your dudes, right? Let dudes be dudes in dude situations is kind of how I look at it. Like trust them to do what they do. Those are your veterans. Those are the guys you're rolling out there. I just don't think you need to overcomplicate this, too much. And yeah, like we said, you Savage in Yankee Stadium, whatever. I don't necessarily think that's as big of a deal as people might think.
You Savage, yeah. I mean, you're right, and I think too we'll see like how things shake out. Again, quick pulls. What does the bullpen health look like, and how that could factor in? Question for you: are you worried at all about Gausman, given his last couple starts, at all in terms of, and especially against Aaron Judge and Stanton, who both have great numbers against him?
Yeah, I think, that this might be a bit of an old school mindset in analytics. People might cringe when I say this, but like it's too late for that. Right. Like he's got to go be the guy in game 1. He's got to be the guy in game 5 if it gets there. He's got the splitter. If the splitter's working, that's obviously the key to his success. It's not ideal that his last couple of starts weren't great, but I mean, again, they say this is a new season. They've got a bit of a rest here, and we'll see how it goes in game 1. I think we'll know pretty quickly whether he has it or not. But yeah, it's too late. Well, what else are you going to do? I guess is my point.
And he was very good against the Yankees in their September series here. or in the Bronx as well on that Friday night when he took on, I believe, Cam Schlittler that night. And yeah, I mean, and then you look at the Yankees side of things as well, Matt. They're going to be going with not their best in game one, right? So you think about, if you're concerned about Gausman, well, still, I mean, if he can give you 4 or 5 solid innings, that's great. You'll take that for sure. The old "if I told you" game, which everyone loves to be playing right now in the Jays fan base. And then, of course, game 2, you likely have Max Fried. And from there, then game 3, likely Rodon, and game 4, likely Cam Schlittler, again, pending injuries and whatever else. And for me, Matt, like, I look at the starting rotations, I compare the two, I think they're pretty even. And I would say as well that the Jays have hit these starters for the Yankees pretty well this year. Now, again, you mentioned new season, but I think that still factors in that they've seen these guys, especially with Max Fried. They've hit Max Fried quite well. And I think that could go a long way in this series.
I think that was the advantage of getting the Yankees over the Red Sox. I think it would have been really tough to get, because with the way it's, as we just mentioned, game 2 and game 5 would be a regular starter and regular rest. It would have been Garrett Crochet in game 2 and then in game 5. That would have been really tough on this team, I think. But yeah, they've hit Max Fried really well. Well, maybe not really well, but they've touched him up. Rodon the same way. We'll see whether they go with Will Warren or Luis Heel in game 1. But yeah, I would say the starting rotations are pretty even. The Yankees bullpen's been a bit of a disaster, which is, helpful if you're a Jays fan. The other reason I like going just straight up rolling Gausman, Bieber, and Yasavage is they're going to have 3 lefties in their bullpen now with Lauer, Brendan Little, and likely Mason Fluharty if they want to go there. Lots of lefties in this Yankees lineup. I mean, look at Trent Grisham, Jazz Chisholm. Cody Bellinger's splits aren't quite, as noticeable as the others. Who else am I missing? Austin Wells, Ben Rice. So there's a lot of lefties. So if they do need a quick hook and they need to go to, let's say, a Lauer in game 1, maybe he can give you a little bit of length and still pop back in game 4.
I agree. And that's really important for them too. I think Fluharty could have himself quite the name-making series, as it were. I thought he's looked great the last few weeks. And I mean, I've been a big proponent of him all year, but guys pitching some big moments this season, like at Dodger Stadium and stuff. I could see him have another big moment. On Max Fried, I was just looking at the stats. So on Canada Day in Toronto, he went 6 innings, allowed 4 earned runs, only had 3 hits because there's a couple home runs in there and a couple walks as well. And then versus Toronto on September 7th, 7 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, and a walk. So,
probably take that for the most part. If you get 3-4 runs off Max Fried in 6 innings, you're going to be putting yourself probably in a good spot in the game. And the other thing I guess we should talk about is, does it depend if you win game 1, who starts game 2?
Yeah, it's the age-old question, right?
It just gets into the overthinking. I can see it now, and teams do it this time of year. I mean, this is a great example. The Chicago Cubs start Andrew Kittredge in game 2, and then go to Shota Imanaga out of the bullpen. Shota Imanaga's made 54 appearances as a big leaguer. How many starts do you think he has?
54 appearances as a big leaguer. He probably has 53 or 54 starts.
54 starts. And then Kittredge gives up a run in the first, and they end up losing that game, and Imanaga goes 4 and gives up 2, I think. And some of those, I didn't think Kittredge pitched overly bad. I thought they hit some good pitches. But the point being is, why there's so much overthinking that goes on. It's like, just do what you do. This is a team that needs contributions throughout the lineup. We've seen that all year long. Stick with the plan. Don't do something crazy now because it's the playoffs. It drives me nuts sometimes watching games managed during this time of year.
So if Louis Varland is the game 2 starter, is your head going to explode?
Oh, yes. We might have to do an emergency pod if that goes south.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, and it could work. That's the thing about baseball. That could work. But if it doesn't, then, you kind of look like an idiot.
It worked last week against Boston. I think too, Matt, it's a bit of a panic move, in my opinion. Depending on your game 1 result, like, oh, we lost, so now we got to, like, it signifies maybe a lack of trust as well. Like, if you were going to go with, say, Yasavage and then you switch it to Bieber, what does that say to Yasavage? What does that say to Bieber? Like, there's kind of an interesting dynamic there. You have to be careful about that. Make the plans. Plans can change, of course, but when it comes to the rotation, yeah. I also, maybe as we continue to talk about pitching, get into the bullpen a little bit. Obviously, that'll have a huge impact on the series. It feels like, Matt, throughout the wildcard series and the last couple of years in the playoffs, it's basically comes down to power. How many strikeouts can your pitchers get, and how many home runs can your hitters get? It's a power game now, right? So you look at it, the Yankees hit a ton of home runs. They had, I think, 274 this year. They led baseball in home runs. So you know they're going to be hitting home runs. And their bullpen, albeit, much maligned this year, actually pretty good, right? Devin Williams has been a lot better lately. David Bednar is a good closer, right? Now, there are some pieces in there that could go south, like Devin Williams, like Doval. Like, there's some guys in there. They are not super proven. Neither are the Jays, though. So the bullpens, to me, actually are an interesting dynamic as well. They match up somewhat evenly in that there's a little bit of concern about each, maybe a little more than a little concern. And Matt, I guess a good starting point is you look at the Jays and the closer role. What does Jeff Hoffman, let's say Jeff Hoffman blows a save in game 1. Let's say the Jays are in another save situation in game 2. Would you go back to him if you're John Schneider?
Yeah, I think I'm one of those guys. He's your guy. You've done this all year. Because what happens now if Hoffman blows a save? Well, whether he looks awful or, whatever, they hit some good pitches, and you go to Yariel Rodriguez and he blows the save. Now what? Now how is everyone reacting? There's a certain level of, he's done it all year. They haven't removed him throughout the year in this situation. This is your game. This is your spot in the game. Now if you want to go play matchups and there's lefty, right, I can hear a little bit about that. But as far as being one guy, like I'm not going to Yariel Rodriguez in the 9th. I'm not going to Louis Varland in the 9th just because Jeff Hoffman blows the save in game 1. I don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's not really a clear alternative. Like if Jimmy Garcia was up and healthy and pitching well, maybe he would be the only guy. Seranthony Dominguez is interesting. I think he's too wild and he doesn't do well against lefties. You kind of need a righty lane for him, right? Now, if it's Judge, but usually Judge is surrounded by lefties is the thing. If it's Judge, Bellinger, Stanton, let's say, that's a tough spot to put Dominguez in, given how wild he is and given he could get it done. But I think you'd still prefer Jeff Hoffman in that spot. I think you're right. And that'll be interesting to see how they deploy them. I think you probably, where does Brendan Little fit in? He's had such an interesting year. You're going to need him. That's the reality. You're going to need all your lefties in this series, Lauer, Fluharty, and Little, in some pretty big spots. Like it might be a situation, Matt, where Gausman gets taken out in the 4th inning or something. And, Fluharty's pitching in the 4th. Next thing you know, you're in the 7th or 8th, and you have a huge spot, a couple guys on, and it's Brendan Little. Right?
I think you pitch your highest leverage guys in the highest leverage situations. I don't think you save Hoffman for the 9th necessarily. If there's a pocket of righties and it's runners on and you need he may pitch to 70. So I know I kind of Andrew Miller back 5, 6, 7 years ago. That kind of set the tone for that. And then you figure out the rest. But you need to use your highest leverage guys in the highest leverage situations. That's not necessarily the 9th. Because you could be up by 5 in the 9th, down by 5 in the 9th, right? You don't want to, get it to that point. So, but yeah, if it's a 3 or less run lead in the 9th, you're giving the ball to Hoffman, and I have no doubt that they're going to do that.
It's exciting. I think that to me is one of the more exciting aspects of this series is the bullpens and how things shake out. It feels like every fan base feels like their bullpen sucks, right? Because if you just watch your own team, you're going to feel that way because they're going to blow games.
They're just so volatile, right? From year to year, game to game, week to week, month to month. It's just you don't really know. This Jays bullpen, people thought it was great earlier in the year, and now that's now it's a question mark. So it's just the way bullpens are structured and the way kind of they play out because of the short spurts and the short outings, and you give up a run in an inning, you look like a bum. So. I know all about that.
Right. There you go. Last thing on the pitching, do you think we see Max Scherzer on the ALDS roster?
Yes. If they go 13-13.
Right.
I don't think they'll go 4. You don't really need to go 14 pitchers. I don't think they'll go 14-12. I think they're going to want to. That seems a little extreme. So yes, I'll say yes.
I just can't see a spot where he would pitch, other than mop up. And you'd think you would have someone like Yariel Rodriguez or whoever you could give a few innings to in mop up. He pitched 5 innings yesterday in the intra-squad game. I read from Ben Nicholson-Smith. And so how does that factor in? He certainly wouldn't be around for games 1 and 2. Does that mean he's just simply staying fresh in case there's an injury?
Yeah, if someone goes out first or second inning.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And maybe that's a situation where you want him on the roster. But honestly, Matt, he has not looked great. Obviously, we had his numbers. We talked about it last episode. His numbers in September, he had an ERA over 10. So there's also the thing of like, from a performance standpoint, you can't have a clunker. You really can't. So you definitely don't envision him starting at all. So
not in a 5-game series. He definitely won't start. I don't think. I wouldn't think.
Unless something really goes south with one of these arms, but yeah, I can't see it. Yeah.
I don't think Scherzer plays a part in the series at all, unless Godwin gets yanked in the second inning or Bieber gets yanked in the second inning, and you need someone to eat 3 or 4 innings. But it is useful to have that, because you don't want to have Eric Lauer in that situation, because I think he's too valuable as a left-hander.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily want him coming in game 2 and eating 5 innings, and then it's like, okay, now he's done until game 5. I think you want that flexibility, and I'd be shocked if Mason Fluharty isn't in this bullpen. Just the way some people were talking about, he might be on the bubble. I think you have to have the 3 lefties against the Yankees, especially going into Yankee Stadium. The way that ballpark plays, I think that's kind of a no-brainer.
No doubt about that. Maybe we transition now to the hitting side of things, the lineups. In that, we have a kind of a feast or famine type lineup for the Yankees, right? Pretty much everyone in that lineup, aside from maybe Ryan McMahon, can hit a ton of home runs, and even McMahon. Of course, now that I've said that, he'll go off this series. But yeah, like that Yankees lineup should terrify you as a Jays fan, as a Jays pitcher, as I'm sure they are. Whether it be Aaron Judge's numbers at Rogers Center or against Kevin Gausman, or just Aaron Judge in general, it terrifies you. Now in the postseason, it's a bit of a different story. Although he was okay against Boston, he was certainly getting on base. Stanton, I think, went 1 for 11, but had the big double. Interesting series, right? You've got some guys with the Yankees who hit for a lot of power. Rogers Center hit for a lot of power in general. When it comes to the Jays, very different. They are not really the power hitting teams of 2015-16 or 2021. This is a different look. They play a lot more like Cleveland, in that they are going to scratch runs across. Now, you have guys in that lineup who can hit home runs. George Springer, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. There's a number of guys who can hit home runs. Hell, Kirk had one of the biggest home runs of his life on Sunday against Tampa. So look, anyone can hit a home run at any time, but it feels like I said, Matt, that power dominates in the postseason. So they will have to find a way to scratch runs across, and it is hard to string hits together, especially when you're going up against some high-end arms, whether it be in the rotation or in relief. So they're going to have to, I don't want to say keep up with the Yankees, because there's multiple ways to win, but probably going to need a lot of power, and the question is, where will that come from?
That's part of my problem now with this series, and this is where I thought they lined up a lot better against the Red Sox, despite Garrett Crochet, obviously, is this lineup all year long has needed contributions from 1 through 9. Like, that's how they've gotten it done. Whether that's, that's not always a hit, that's moving a runner, that's going first to third, but they need contributions 1 through 9. They don't have an Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton. They can't get, well, it's not that they can't, but they're not a team that gets 7 shutout innings and hits a 3-run home run and wins. That's kind of the model a little bit more in the postseason, whereas the Yankees have that with Judge, Bellinger. Jazz Chisholm was a 31 home run guy this year.
Ben Rice had a great year.
Ben Rice had a great year. So, like you said, stringing hits and playing the way that the Jays play, I really enjoy watching it. Mm-hmm. That's a lot more successful typically over 162 games. As opposed to getting into a short series and Judge with one swing can turn the game on its head. The Jays don't have that guy. And again, you mentioned anyone can hit a home run at any given time, but the probability of that is much higher with the Yankees in the middle of their lineup than the Jays. And Vladdy hasn't been good the last month. No. Like, there's no way around it. The Jays need Vladdy to do what Judge does for the Yankees. And simply put, he hasn't done that. So to think that that's going to turn and when everything's under the microscope in the playoffs, it'll be exciting if it did, but you just can't hold your breath for that.
He hasn't homered since September 5th, and in the 21 games since then, he's posted a 596 OPS.
That's crazy. He hasn't homered since September 5th.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot be feeling good about that. I mean,
no, that's a huge concern.
Every time Judge steps to the plate, every time Giancarlo Stanton steps to the plate, there's that threat. I don't feel that with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now.
No.
I haven't felt that with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. since he hit, what was it, 40-something home runs in 23 or 22?
22, yeah.
Like, he has not been that guy. He has been a 20 to 25 home run guy. He's not, and that doesn't mean he's not a good hitter. Now I'm trying to think of when he hit all those home runs.
I think it might have been 21. Let me look it up. I get all my years mixed up.
Was it 48, I think?
He hits, it was 48 home runs in 2021. Yeah. And he's never hit 40 since.
He's a 290-something hitter with 20 to 25 home runs and 80 and 100 RBIs. That's who Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's not an Aaron Judge. He's not, he's just not. And could he turn into that? He's still young. He's still got a lot of time left. But if the Jays think that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is all of a sudden going to hit 5 home runs in this series, like, I don't see it happening, especially with every pitch in the playoffs we know is under a microscope. There's so much more intensity. You're seeing everyone's best focus. This is in the middle of July. So I just don't see the Jays offense kind of having that strike big, strike quickly type of approach that they haven't shown all year.
Without Bo Bichette as well behind him, that plays a huge role. And I think that the lack of Bo Bichette, like, we don't know for sure if Bo Bichette's not playing in the series. It's not looking good. What you hear in the media, he isn't great. Basically, it sounds more and more like he's going to be back for the ALCS, as opposed, and even then, I mean, it's really concerning, that injury as well. Those two things, Vladdy's lack of power and Bo Bichette being out, those two are huge, huge problems for the Jays in this series. And yes, you have the other players on the roster who can come through. Nathan Lucas had a great weekend against Tampa. He's had a fine year, absolutely. Addison Barger, while he has struggled in the second half of the season, could still come alive in a big moment. That's a guy who could hit a home run, but you certainly don't feel as confident about the Jays kind of throughout their lineup to hit a home run as you would with the Yankees. And you might need that, right?
And I didn't think Boston had that either.
No.
Right? No. Like, that's why I kind of liked that matchup a little bit more. Although
that lineup was thin.
Crochet and their bullpen's a lot better than both of these teams' bullpens. Yeah. But yeah, it's just something about a guy that can turn the game on its head with one swing. Judge comes up 4 times. That's 4 times that they have a chance to drive in a run. You got a guy in scoring position when that guy comes, when those 2 guys come to the plate. So,
right.
It's going to be interesting. So don't let Judge beat you. That's the bottom line. You cannot let Aaron Judge beat you in this series. If it's Stanton, it's Stanton, but it can't be Judge.
So I've got a few surprise contributors. I got one for each team. That's surprise contributors, but guys kind of outside of the stars. So for the Jays, I'm going with Ernie Clement. I think Ernie Clement's going to have a huge series. I think his game kind of could come alive in the postseason, for lack of a better term. He's great contact skills, runs well, has this kind of dogged mentality. And it's a little intangibly, I know, but I think that a guy who's from upstate New York, who grew up watching the Yankees all the time, I think has been really been rallied around by this fan base this year. And I think that he's a guy who, given the matchups, I think anecdotally he's played well against the Yankees this year. And I think in the postseason, a guy like that comes alive and comes through with some big clutch moments. And then for the Yankees, there's a number of guys you can go with. I'm going to go with Austin Wells, though, because I think that throughout the year, he didn't have the best year. But he also, to me, screams like a guy who obviously behind the plate will have a huge impact. But that lefty swing, whether it be at Yankee Stadium or now even in Toronto, Matt, like that porch in Toronto for lefties is also pretty short. You know what I mean? You can hit a home run kind of easily if you're a lefty. We saw that a little bit with Dalton Varsho this year as well as Barger. I think that's a guy who does scare me a little bit because all these guys can hit home runs in this Yankees lineup, he being one of them. But when you have so many guys to worry about in that lineup, Judge, Stanton, Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm Jr., whoever, you're just going to have to pitch to a guy like Wells, right? You might not be able to get the matchup you want against Wells. And that's where a guy like him and like an Ernie Clement as well, when teams are focused on other areas of the lineup and they might not get the matchup they want, could really succeed. So those are 2 guys for me. And one X factor before I let you go, Matt. I've got one X factor in this series, not for either team, just one X factor in the series, and that's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Whatever he does, like, I don't think the team in a 5-game set with how good the Yankees lineup is, I think if Vladdy has a poor series, I don't think the Jays win, and vice versa. I think if Vlad is solid, which, by the way, he loves playing the Yankees. He loves Yankee Stadium. That's the thing. It's a new season. And boy, if there's a series that he'll come alive in, it would be this one. And this is the biggest series of his career, obviously. These are the biggest games of his career. He has not been good in the postseason. This is his chance to change all that. The whole next year is going to be the movie and all that. That can all go into the past if you come through in this moment on national television in the U.S. every single day. To me, he's the X factor.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on all three of those points. Erik Clement just seems like a guy that is going to step up in this moment. He seems like one of those guys that just isn't going to be overwhelmed by what's going on. He has a lot of fun playing the game. He's been a bit of a spark plug at times. So yeah, I think absolutely. Austin Wells too. That's a forgotten guy in this lineup. I kind of almost forgot that he's even in this lineup, and the Jays can't afford to forget that he's in the lineup. But yeah, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. This series I think tilts on what he does. If he goes out and gets 2 hits, and it could be a short series for the Blue Jays. He's going to have to be a difference maker, and like you said, he likes playing at Yankee Stadium, and this is going to be probably one of the most watched DSs. Probably, I think the Phillies and Dodgers is going to be a really good one. But all eyes are always on the Yankees, right? So all eyes are going to be on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for the Blue Jays. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that one.
It is crazy, isn't it, that because of the lack of revenue, TV revenue from the Jays, they put the Yankees at 4:00. I thought for sure if they got the Yankees, they'd still be in prime time. But because of the Dodgers, Phillies, and you also have the Cubs in as well, it's a big market. To me, that is so fascinating, though, that they were willing to put the Yankees to play at 4:00 on a weekend because of, and who knows what they'll do during the week, but because they don't derive revenue. And isn't it great, Matt, for Canadian Jays fans that we get to see Sportsnet continue their broadcasts as opposed to 2015-16? That's a huge difference to me.
That's huge because I saw Ben Nicholson-Smith tweet that today. I was really obviously happy to see that, and it was known before, but I think Blue Jays fans are really really privileged to have these guys. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be around them a little bit over the last year or so. Just really fortunate that Sportsnet loves the Blue Jays. Okay, I think they're all in on the Blue Jays. Everything they do, I think they do a great job, and it's really fortunate. I think I saw. You don't want guys. It can be frustrating as a fan to have national broadcasters. You see it sometimes with Apple TV. Yeah. They say some things that are that doesn't really make any sense if you watch this team, and that's not their fault. I mean, they got 30 teams to worry about, but it's nice to see that really in-depth personal touch that Sportsnet's going to be able to bring.
We saw that in the wild card round too, man. I don't know how much you watch, but you've got kind of national broadcasts with commentators who don't normally call the teams, so it just doesn't. I'm sorry, doesn't work. Doesn't work.
It doesn't flow.
No, they don't know frankly, half the time they don't know the market. Half the time they don't know. I mean, there was the snafu with the NHL promo on ESPN. That was a whole other thing. But big picture, it is so good for Canadian baseball and Canadian baseball fans to have your storytellers who know the team, who know Canada, who know the market, who know everything, the history, all that stuff, to get to call these games. And for Buck Martinez too. How awesome is that for Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez? To get to call these games for them personally, it must be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw it earlier in the year with the Orioles when they were in town. And I don't know who it was talking about when the pickoff happened and the Jays fans booed, and he made the comment about Jays fans, they don't know as much about baseball up here. So it made some stupid comment like that. Every other fan base doesn't do the exact same thing. But yeah, that's kind of what you're talking about. You don't want something like that to come out on national TV, and it's and you just pissed off a whole country. So just
remember Harold Reynolds back in the day with Fox when he said that Canadians don't know how to catch foul balls or something. Yeah. And Russell Martin was the catcher for the Jays.
Yeah, it's just you don't want stuff like that because then that gets on, then that kind of takes over some of it, and it's just and everyone says stupid things, but it's nice to know that Dan Shulman, who is arguably, in my opinion, finalist for the Ford C. Frick Award this year, by the way, is one of the best, if not the best. So definitely lucky to have him on the call.
Very, and so it's going to be really exciting. 4:00 Saturday and Sunday for games 1 and 2. It's going to be just electric downtown around Rogers Center. I mean, this is such a big moment as we kind of wrap things up. For guys like Ernie Clement, Addison Barger, hell, you're about to be a household name in the States for a week, right? You really, or at least in baseball fans' houses for the next week, right? And that's pretty cool. You have a chance to really make your moment make a name for yourself in the postseason. Nathan Lucas, like all these guys who are not well known are about to be very well known, and that's got to be really a really cool feeling.
Especially if you can make a difference. You have a big at bat, or a big hit, or a big outing. You're gonna, people are gonna know your name. Not that they don't already. Hardcore baseball fans, but like you said, Nathan Lucas, Ernie Clement, like a lot of these guys aren't household names. They're not household names, but like you said, they're about to be. So that's kind of exciting. I want to end this. I hate predictions, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Your prediction for the series?
Yeah, I could go either way, right? I could paint a picture for you where the Yankees hit home runs, the Jays don't. I could paint a picture where the Jays outpitch the Yankees. I'm going with the Jays, and I'm taking them at 4. I think the Jays get enough power, whether it be from Vladdy and throughout their lineup. Their bullpen is good enough. They don't have any major meltdowns, is my point. But also, I think they're going to have the lead more often than not. I think the Jays are better defensively. They play a cleaner brand of baseball. Ultimately, I think this comes down to a few big moments, right? A few big plate appearances. And I think ultimately Vladdy comes through and the Jays win in 4.
Okay, I'll be the villain here. I think it's Yankees in 5. I said that a couple of days ago to somebody, so I'm going to stick with it. I'll go Yankees in 5.
Okay. I love it.
I guess we'll wrap that up right there.
Different opinions.
Yeah, I think Blue Jays fans want to agree with Jackson here, obviously, but it's going to be a great series. We're looking forward to it, and we hope you enjoyed, and we'll be back, I'm sure, with plenty to talk about in the coming weeks. So until then, take care.